Hello, my name is Carlos and I have an incredible story to share with you. Something that completely changed my life and the way I see the world. Before I begin, I want you to know that I have always been a staunch skeptic, a declared atheist since my teenage years. I used to ridicule anything related to religion or spirituality. To me, it was all nothing but superstition and stories invented to console people in the face of the unknown. I was a man of science, a successful engineer who believed only in what I could see, touch, and prove. My life was based on facts and logic. I had everything planned, a promising career, a perfect family, and a bright future ahead. Little did I know that everything was about to change in a way I could never have imagined. It was just another day. I was on my way to work, driving my car along the busy main avenue of the city. Traffic was heavy, as always, and I felt a bit stressed about an important meeting I had that morning. Then everything happened in a matter of seconds. A speeding truck ran a red light and hit my car head-on. The last thing I remember was the deafening sound of the collision and a piercing pain running through my entire body. After that, everything went dark. What happened next is something I still struggle to understand and explain. But one thing is certain. That experience completely changed my worldview and made me question everything I had believed until then. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer in my wrecked car, nor in a hospital. I found myself in a place that defies any description. It was as if I were floating in a vast space of light and colors I had never seen before. There was no up or down, no horizon, no limits. It was a feeling of freedom and absolute peace that I had never experienced in life. At that moment, I knew I had died, and against all my previous beliefs, I remained conscious. The first thing I felt was a mix of astonishment and confusion. How was this possible? I who had always mocked the idea of life after death. Was I experiencing exactly that? As I tried to process what was happening, I realized I was not alone in that incredible place. A loving and welcoming presence surrounded me. It was not something I could see with my eyes, but feel with every fiber of my being. It was as if the universe itself were embracing me, conveying a sense of belonging and unconditional acceptance. Then I began to relive moments of my life, but it wasn't like watching a movie. I was there, living each scene again, feeling every emotion with overwhelming intensity. The most surprising part was that I not only re-experienced my own feelings and thoughts, but also felt the impact of my actions on others. I saw the smile on my mother's face when, as a child, I surprised her with a drawing on Mother's Day. I felt her joy, mixed with the pride and unconditional love she felt for me. I realized how small acts of kindness could brighten someone's day in a way I had never imagined. But I also saw moments I was not proud of. I relived heated arguments I had with friends and family about religion and spirituality. This time, however, I could feel the pain and frustration that my acidic words and exaggerated skepticism caused them. I understood that in my obstinate quest for scientific truth, I had closed myself off to other forms of knowledge and experience. With every moment relived, I gained a new perspective on my life and on the universe as a whole. I began to understand that there was much more to existence than what I could see or touch. Reality was infinitely more complex and wonderful than I had ever imagined. In that state of expanded consciousness, I received a series of revelations that shook the foundations of my being. I discovered that we are all connected in ways beyond human comprehension. Every thought, every action, every choice we make reverberates throughout the cosmos, affecting not only our own lives but everyone around us. I realized that love, something I had often considered merely a chemical reaction in our brains, was in fact the most powerful force in the universe. It was the love that united all things, that gave meaning to existence, and that propelled us to evolve and grow. As these truths unfolded before me, I felt a deep sense of humility and gratitude. All the certainties I had about life and death were completely shaken. I realized how much of my existence I had wasted, focusing only on the tangible and ignoring all the richness of the spiritual world. It was at that moment of epiphany that I felt a calling. A soft yet firm voice echoed within me. "It is not your time yet, Carlos. You have a mission to fulfill." Before I could process what was happening, I felt myself being pulled back. The intense light began to fade, the colors dissipated, and suddenly, everything went dark again. When I opened my eyes once more, I found myself in a hospital bed, surrounded by machines and tubes. The pain in my body was intense, but nothing compared to the confusion in my mind. I had returned. But why? And how could I continue living after all that I had experienced? The doctors called it a miracle. They said I had been in a coma for 3 weeks and that my chances of survival were minimal. They talked about severe injuries, complicated surgeries, and a recovery that would be long and difficult. But none of that mattered to me at that moment. All I could think about was the experience I had while I was dead. In the weeks that followed, as my body slowly recovered, my mind was in constant turmoil. How could I, a staunch atheist, explain what had happened? How could I reconcile my scientific background with the transcendental experience I had lived? And more importantly, what should I do with this knowledge? I confess there were moments of deep anguish and doubt. Part of me wanted to rationalize everything, to find a logical explanation for what had happened. Perhaps it was just a vivid dream caused by a lack of oxygen in the brain, I thought, or maybe it was a side effect of the medications. But deep in my heart, I knew it was more than that. The experience was too real, too profound to be dismissed as mere hallucination. As I physically recovered, I began to research near-death experiences, NDEs. I discovered I was not alone. Thousands of people around the world reported experiences similar to mine. Doctors, scientists, ordinary people, all describing encounters with a reality beyond our usual comprehension. The most fascinating aspect was the consistency in the accounts. People from different cultures, religions, and backgrounds described similar elements: the sensation of leaving the body, the tunnel of light, the encounter with spiritual beings, the life review. How could there be so much similarity if it was all just a hallucination? I immersed myself in scientific studies on the subject. I discovered that respected researchers were investigating NDEs with academic rigor. Some argued that these experiences were evidence that consciousness could exist separately from the brain. Others sought neurological explanations for the phenomenon. The debate was far from settled, but one thing was clear. There was much more to explore in this field than I had ever imagined. Meanwhile, my physical recovery progressed, but something within me had fundamentally changed. I could no longer view the world the same way. The colors seemed more vibrant, the sounds richer. Every moment appeared laden with a profound meaning that I had never noticed before. I began to pay more attention to the people around me. I observed their faces, their expressions, trying to capture the feelings and emotions that I had previously ignored. I realized how much pain, joy, and hope each person carried within them. And I became aware of how blind I had been to all this for most of my life. My family and friends noticed the change. Some were intrigued, others concerned. Atheist, who was once known for my skeptical stance and sometimes even aggressive attitude towards spiritual matters, now spoke about love, compassion, and the interconnection of all things. For many, it was as if I had become a completely different person. And in a way the near-death experience had not only changed my worldview, but also my life's purpose. I knew I had returned for a reason. That voice that called me back had spoken of a mission. But what could it be? As I reflected on this question, I began to feel a strong urge to share my story. Not to convince people of an absolute truth. After all, I was still struggling to understand it all myself, but to open up a dialogue, to show that there is more to life and death than our philosophy can ever dream of, as Shakespeare would say. I decided then that it was time to speak openly about my experience. I started writing a blog, sharing not only what had happened during my NDE, but also how it was impacting my everyday life. To my surprise, the blog quickly gained followers. People from all over the world began writing to me, sharing their own stories and seeking guidance. It was then that I realized my mission was to be a bridge between the material world I knew so well and the spiritual realm I had experienced, a bridge between science and spirituality, a bridge for those who, like me, struggled to find meaning in a universe that seemed much larger and more mysterious than we had ever imagined. But this path would not be easy. I knew I would face skepticism, ridicule, and even hostility from some of my old colleagues in the scientific world. How could I, a respected engineer, now speak about out-of-body experiences and encounters with the divine? How could I maintain my professional credibility while exploring such controversial issues? And there was also the personal challenge. How could I integrate this new understanding of the universe into my daily life? How could I live according to the truths I had discovered during my near-death experience? How could I balance the demands of the material world with the spiritual calling I now felt so strongly? These questions haunted me day and night. But at the same time, I felt an energy and a purpose that I had never experienced before. I knew I was on the right path, even if that path was unknown and sometimes frightening. As I continued my journey of recovery and self-discovery, I began to notice subtle yet profound changes in my everyday life. My relationships became deeper and more meaningful. I developed a newfound appreciation for nature and the beauty of the world around me. And perhaps most surprisingly, I started experiencing moments of spiritual connection, even amidst the most mundane activities. It was during one of these reflections that I had a bold idea. Why not use my background in engineering to try to better understand near-death experiences? Perhaps I could create a bridge between science and spirituality in a way that no one had tried before. I began researching technologies that could map brain activity during altered states of consciousness. I studied neurofeedback, quantitative electroencephalography, and other advanced neuroimaging techniques. My goal was not to discredit NDEs, but to find a way to study them more objectively and systematically. At the same time, I continued sharing my story through the blog and began giving lectures to small groups. Initially, these were just informal meetings with curious friends and acquaintances. But soon interest grew, and I found myself speaking to increasingly larger audiences. At one of these lectures, I met Elena, a psychologist who had dedicated her career to studying altered states of consciousness. She was fascinated by my approach of combining engineering with spirituality and invited me to collaborate on a research project. Together, we developed a protocol to study people who reported mystical and near-death experiences. We used cutting-edge technology to monitor brain activity while conducting in-depth interviews to capture the subjective aspects of these experiences. The results were astonishing. We discovered unique patterns of brain activity associated with states of expanded consciousness. But the most intriguing part was that these patterns could not be completely explained by existing neuroscientific models. There was something more happening, something that challenged our current understanding of the brain and consciousness. Our work began to attract attention from the scientific community. We were invited to present our findings at international conferences and to publish articles in renowned journals. Suddenly, I found myself at the center of a fascinating and controversial scientific debate. Some colleagues accused me of abandoning scientific rigor in favor of mystical speculations. Others praised our innovative, interdisciplinary approach. The debate was heated but productive. We were opening new pathways in understanding human consciousness. Meanwhile, my personal life was also undergoing profound transformations. My relationship with my wife and Anna, which had initially been shaken by my radical change in perspective, was now stronger than ever. Anna, who had always been more open to spiritual matters, found in me a more understanding and emotionally connected partner. Our children, Tiago and Mariana, were also affected by my journey. Initially confused by their father's change, they gradually became interested in the questions I was exploring. Our family conversations grew deeper and more meaningful, addressing topics such as the meaning of life, the nature of reality, and our connection to something greater than ourselves. However, not everything was easy. There were days when I felt overwhelmed by the responsibility of carrying this message. I questioned whether I was doing enough, whether I was on the right path. Doubt, my old companion from my skeptical days, still visited me occasionally. It was during one of these moments of doubt that I had an experience that reaffirmed my purpose. I was meditating, a practice I had incorporated into my routine since the NDE, when suddenly I felt that same loving presence I had encountered during my near-death experience. The message I received was clear. Keep going. You are on the right path. Remember, you are not alone on this journey. That experience filled me with a renewed sense of purpose and energy. I realized that my mission went beyond merely sharing my story or conducting scientific research. It was about helping people reconnect with their own spiritual essence, regardless of their beliefs or backgrounds. It was about showing that science and spirituality are not opposites, but rather complementary in the pursuit of truth. With this new understanding, I decided to expand my reach. I began writing a book that combined my personal story with the scientific discoveries we had made. The writing process was therapeutic and revealing. Each chapter made me relive aspects of my journey, bringing new insights and understandings. The book, titled Beyond the Horizon, The Journey of a Skeptic into the Realm of Consciousness, was published and, to my surprise, became an international bestseller. Suddenly, I found myself on lecture tours, appearing on television shows, and receiving invitations to speak at universities around the world. It was a platform I had never imagined having, and with it came great responsibility. I realized that my words had the power to influence people, to change lives. This made me even more careful and reflective about what I shared. At one of these lectures, at a large university, something deeply moving happened. After my presentation, a young physics student approached me with tears in his eyes. He told me that he had lost faith in science and life after his brother's death. My story, he said, had given him hope again. It had shown him that it was possible to be rational and open to the mystery of the universe at the same time. That encounter reminded me why I was doing all this. It wasn't about fame or recognition. It was about touching lives, about offering a perspective that could bring comfort and inspiration to those grappling with life's big questions. As my influence grew, so did the challenges. Fierce critics attacked my work, accusing me of pseudoscience and charlatanism. I received threats from extremist groups who saw my ideas as a threat to their established beliefs. There were moments when I questioned whether the price I was paying was too high. But then I remembered that voice, that loving presence I had encountered during my near-death experience, and I found the strength to continue. My journey was far from over. In fact, I felt it was only just beginning. Each day brought new challenges, new discoveries, new opportunities for growth, and I was determined to move forward, carrying the message that there is more to life and death than what we can see with our eyes or touch with our hands. As I reflected on everything that had happened since that fateful day of the accident, I realized that my life had become a living testament to the message I was trying to share. I was the living bridge between two worlds that many considered incompatible, and I was determined to continue building that bridge, one step at a time, one heart at a time. As my journey continued, I realized I needed to go beyond lectures and the book. I wanted to create something that could help people explore their own spiritual experiences in a more tangible and practical way. And so the idea of Project Horizon was born. Project Horizon was an ambitious initiative that combined scientific research, cutting-edge technology, and contemplative practices. Our goal was to create a controlled environment where people could explore altered states of consciousness safely and under monitoring. Working with a multidisciplinary team of scientists, engineers, and spiritual practitioners, we developed a series of innovative protocols and technologies. We used a combination of sensory stimuli, advanced meditation techniques, and even custom neurofeedback devices to help people access states of expanded consciousness. The results exceeded our wildest expectations. Participants reported profound experiences of cosmic connection, transformative insights about their lives, and even encounters with what they described as spiritual beings or non-physical consciousness. The most fascinating aspect was that we were able to map these experiences scientifically. Our neuroimaging equipment showed unique patterns of brain activity during these altered states. We were beginning to unravel the neurological mechanisms behind mystical and spiritual experiences. But Project Horizon was not without its controversies. Critics argued that we were toying with forces we did not fully understand. Some accused us of manufacturing spiritual experiences, while others feared we were opening doors to dangerous and unknown dimensions. We took those concerns seriously. We implemented strict safety and ethical protocols and worked closely with scientific and ethical review committees. We were also transparent about our methodologies and results, regularly publishing our findings in peer-reviewed scientific journals. Despite the challenges, the impact of Project Horizon was undeniable. People from all corners of the world began reaching out to us, eager to participate. We witnessed incredible transformations in many of our participants. Individuals who had struggled with depression and anxiety reported a new sense of peace and purpose. Hardened skeptics found themselves questioning their most basic assumptions about reality. One case in particular touched me deeply. Sarah, a renowned neuroscientist, came to our center with the declared goal of debunking our work. She was convinced that our findings were the result of misinterpreted data, or, at worst, deliberate fraud. Sarah went through our standard protocol, including guided meditation sessions and exposure to our customized sensory stimuli. At first, she remained skeptical, analyzing every sensation and experience with a critical eye. But during her third session, something extraordinary happened. Sarah later described having experienced a complete dissolution of the ego. She reported an overwhelming feeling of unity with the entire universe, accompanied by profound insights about the nature of consciousness and reality. When the session ended, Sarah was in tears, deeply moved and transformed by the experience. In the months that followed, Sarah became one of our most ardent advocates. She brought her scientific rigor and reputation to our cause, helping to further legitimize our discoveries in the eyes of the scientific community. Sarah's case was not unique. We saw countless examples of people whose lives were profoundly impacted by their experiences in Project Horizon. But with growing success came new challenges and responsibilities. We began receiving offers from major corporations interested in commercializing our technology. Some promised to make spiritual enlightenment accessible to everyone for a price. Others saw potential for military or intelligence applications. All these offers were declined. We knew that what we had discovered was too powerful to be used irresponsibly or for personal gain. Instead, we decided to expand Project Horizon in a way that remained true to our principles. We established research centers in different parts of the world, collaborating with respected universities and spiritual institutions. Our goal was to create a global network for the exploration of consciousness, combining the best practices of modern science with the wisdom of contemplative traditions. As the project grew, I continued my own journey of growth and self-discovery. Every new advancement in our research made me question and expand my own understanding of the universe and our place in it. Each day, I marveled at the vastness and complexity of consciousness, but not everything was roses. The stress of leading such an ambitious and controversial project began to take its toll. There were nights when I could barely sleep, overwhelmed by the weight of responsibility. I constantly questioned whether we were doing the right thing, if we were venturing into territories that should remain unexplored. It was during one of these moments of doubt that I had an experience that changed everything once again. I was in my office late at night, reviewing some data, when suddenly I felt that familiar sensation of expansion. The world around me seemed to dissolve, and I found myself once again in that realm of light and love that I had experienced during my NDE. This time, however, the experience was even deeper. I received what I can only describe as an influx of information and understanding. I saw the interconnectedness of all things in a way that defied any human description. I understood that the work we were doing was only the beginning of something much greater. When I came to me, hours had passed, although it felt like just an instant had transpired. I felt renewed, recharged with a sense of purpose and clarity that I had not experienced since my initial near-death experience. I realized that our mission went beyond simply studying consciousness or providing transcendental experiences for people. We were on the brink of a revolution in human understanding, one that could potentially transform our civilization in profound and unpredictable ways. With this new understanding, I redirected the focus of Project Horizon. It was no longer just about exploring altered states of consciousness, but about using that knowledge to address humanity's greatest challenges. How could we apply these discoveries to promote peace, resolve conflicts, heal collective traumas, and inspire creative solutions to global problems? We began collaborating with world leaders, environmental activists, artists, and innovators from all fields. We organized consciousness retreats for decision-makers, where they could experience expanded states of consciousness and apply these insights to their work. The results surpassed our wildest expectations. We witnessed peace agreements being signed after leaders had profound experiences of unity. Artists created works that touched people in ways never seen before. Scientists had revolutionary insights that led to advances in fields such as clean energy and disease treatment. As the impact of Project Horizon spread, I began to realize that we were in the midst of a true global consciousness revolution. It was not just about individual transcendental experiences, but about a fundamental shift in the way humanity perceived itself and its place in the cosmos. However, this revolution did not occur without resistance. Established power structures began to view our work as a threat. Authoritarian governments tried to ban our research, claiming it was a form of mind control. Conservative religious leaders accused us of promoting heresy and diverting people from their traditional faiths. We faced lawsuits, smear campaigns, and even physical threats. There were moments when I considered giving up, when the weight of opposition seemed too great to bear. But then I remembered that voice, that presence I had encountered during my near-death experience, and I found the strength to carry on. One of the most significant challenges we faced was the emergence of imitators and opportunists who tried to capitalize on the growing interest in altered states of consciousness. We saw the rise of self-proclaimed gurus promising instant transcendental experiences, often using dangerous or unproven methods. To combat this trend, we intensified our public education efforts. We launched a series of free online courses on the science of consciousness, combining academic rigor with accessible contemplative practices. Our goal was to empower people with the knowledge and tools to explore their own consciousness safely and informedly. At the same time, we continued to deepen our scientific research. We collaborated with quantum physicists to explore possible connections between consciousness and the fundamental structure of the universe. We worked with biologists to investigate how altered states of consciousness could influence cellular processes and even gene expression. One particularly exciting discovery emerged from our collaboration with astronomers and astrophysicists. Using data from our expanded consciousness experiments, we developed a new theoretical model that suggested the possibility of non-local communication across the cosmos. It was a radical idea that challenged our current understanding of space-time, but it resonated with some interpretations of quantum mechanics. This theory led to an audacious project, the Cosmic Contact Protocol. The idea was to use altered states of consciousness as a means of seeking contact with possible extraterrestrial civilizations. It was an approach that combined cutting-edge technology with ancient meditative practices. The announcement of the Cosmic Contact Protocol generated a wave of both enthusiasm and skepticism. Many saw it as the pinnacle of pseudoscience, a New Age fantasy disguised as serious research. Others hailed it as a revolutionary approach to the question of extraterrestrial life. Regardless of the differing opinions, the project captured the public's imagination in a way we hadn't seen since the early days of space exploration. Suddenly, people around the world were discussing consciousness, spirituality, and humanity's place in the cosmos in a new and exciting manner. It was during one of the first experiments of the Cosmic Contact Protocol that I had an experience that shook me to my core. I was participating in a deep meditation session using our most advanced neuromodulation technology, when suddenly I felt propelled beyond the limits of our planet. What I experienced next defies any adequate description in human words. It was as if I could perceive the vastness of the cosmos, not only visually, but with every fiber of my being. I felt connected to every star, every planet, every speck of cosmic dust. And then, in the midst of that immensity, I realized I was not alone. There were other presences, other consciousnesses, so vast and ancient that human civilization seemed like a blink of an eye in cosmic time. There was no communication in the usual sense, but rather an exchange of something, knowledge, energy, love. I have no words to adequately describe it. When I returned to normal consciousness, hours had passed, although it felt like just an instant. I was exhausted, trembling, but also filled with a sense of reverence and awe I had never experienced before. In the days that followed, I struggled to integrate this experience. How could I, an ex-skeptic who once mocked everything related to the spiritual, now claim to have made contact with cosmic intelligences? How could I communicate this experience in a way that wouldn't make me seem completely crazy? I decided to be completely honest about what had happened, knowing that it would likely attract even more criticism and skepticism. To my surprise, my account resonated deeply with many people. I received thousands of messages from individuals who had had similar experiences, but who feared sharing them for fear of ridicule. I realized that we were on the brink of something truly revolutionary. It wasn't just about extraterrestrial contact or mystical experiences. It was about expanding the limits of what we considered possible, about redefining the very concept of reality. As we continued our research, more and more people reported profound experiences of cosmic connection. Scientists, world leaders, artists, people from all walks of life were being transformed by these experiences. We began to see tangible changes in society. There was a noticeable increase in environmental consciousness and climate action, driven by a deeper understanding of the interconnectedness of all life. Long-standing and seemingly intractable conflicts began to find resolutions as decision-makers experienced states of unity and mutual understanding. However, we also faced new challenges. With the growing interest in altered states of consciousness, we saw a resurgence in the irresponsible use of psychoactive substances. We had to intensify our educational efforts, emphasizing the importance of safe and scientifically grounded approaches to exploring consciousness. Furthermore, as our understanding of consciousness expanded, we faced increasingly complex ethical questions. If we could truly make contact with cosmic intelligences, what would be the implications for humanity? Were we ready for such an encounter? These questions kept me awake at night, contemplating the weight of the responsibility we carried. But they also filled me with a sense of purpose and wonder. We were at the forefront of a new frontier of exploration, not of outer space, but of the inner realm of consciousness. Looking back on that fateful day of the car accident that set my journey in motion, I could hardly believe how far we had come. From a staunch skeptic to an explorer of the most extreme frontiers of consciousness. From a man who once mocked spirituality to someone who now saw the entire universe as an expression of divine consciousness. And yet, I felt that we were only just scratching the surface of what was possible. What wonders and challenges awaited us beyond the horizon of human understanding? What new insights would transform our worldview once again? With these questions in mind, I prepared myself for the next phase of our collective journey. A journey that promised not only to expand the limits of our understanding, but perhaps even redefine what it means to be human and alive in this vast and mysterious cosmos. As I prepared to share these new discoveries with the world, I felt a mixture of excitement and reverence. I knew that what we had discovered had the potential to change everything, but I also knew that with great knowledge comes great responsibility. Our task now was not just to continue our explorations, but to ensure that this knowledge was used for the greater good of humanity and all life on Earth. We had to find ways to translate these transcendental experiences into concrete actions that could help heal our wounded planet and unite our fragmented species. I looked out the window of my office, watching the sunset paint the sky with shades of orange and pink. I thought of all the people whose lives had been touched by our work, of all the hearts and minds that had been opened to new possibilities. And then, with a smile, I turned back to my computer and began to write. There was a new story to tell, a story that could very well be the next chapter in the grand narrative of human evolution. As the words flowed, I felt that familiar sense of expansion, of connection with something greater than myself. And I knew, with a certainty that came from deep within my being, that this journey was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. Conclusion. My journey, which began with a near-fatal accident and a near-death experience, led me to places I could have never imagined. From a staunch skeptic to an explorer of the frontiers of consciousness, my life became a testament to the transformative power of direct experience and the relentless pursuit of truth. Through Project Horizon and our revolutionary discoveries, we witnessed the onset of a global paradigm shift, a change that is redefining our understanding of ourselves, our relationships with others, and our connection to the cosmos itself. But perhaps the most important lesson I learned throughout this incredible journey is to always remain open, always be curious, and always be willing to question my own assumptions. Because, as I discovered, the universe is infinitely vaster, more complex, and more wonderful than we could ever imagine. And so, as we prepare for the next chapter of this great adventure, I invite all of you to join us, to open your minds and your hearts to the infinite possibilities that exist within and beyond us. Because in the end, this is not just my story, or even the story of Project Horizon. It is the story of all of us, the story of human consciousness awakening to its true nature and potential. And that story, I am sure, is only just beginning.